Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Before we get started on the main topic here, I just want to point out that as human beings, we eat a lot of different things, a lot of different living creatures. We slaughter them and then we eat them. For instance, just earlier today, I had a hamburger with cheese on it, cheeseburger, and that came from a cow. We slaughter cows and then we eat their meat. That's what human beings do. That's what we do. We slaughter pigs, right? We turn them into sausage, right, or bacon. That's what we do, right? We there's all different fowl that we kill. We kill chickens, eat them. Rotisserie chickens, they're living creatures with brains walking around, two eyeballs looking at stuff, and we slaughtered it and then we ate it. We killed we kill snails. There's some people that eat snails. In some countries, cats and dogs are on the menu. There's just so many different things that human beings will eat. And when we don't really think about it, of course, there's some people out there, vegetarians. They'll eat some animal products, like some of them will drink milk, things like that. And then, of course, there's vegans who won't touch any kind of animal product whatsoever. So God bless those people. But for a lot of us, many of us, we're carnivorous. We eat animals. We kill them, we slaughter them, and then we eat them. People go out deer hunting in Pennsylvania here every year. Right. And they kill deer, and then, a lot of people will, turn the head into a trophy. And then with the rest of the body, they'll eat it. They'll eat the deer. Some people kill rabbits and then eat the rabbits. There's just so many different things that we'll just eat anything. Human beings, we kill things that are living and then we eat them. So with all of that in mind, it should come as no surprise that the possibility does exist that the intelligent beings that came here from some other place, they might be here because they need food, and we might be on the menu. That's the reality of the situation when you think about this. I mean, there have been different cases that have been talked about over the years. Can't really prove it, but let's just think about this. For one thing, every year there's millions of people that go missing throughout this world. And every single year there's tens of thousands of disappearances, missing person cases that are never solved. There are people never found, very mysterious circumstances a lot of times. A lot of times people are out on hiking trips or camping trips or fishing trips and nobody ever sees them again. They go out hunting or somewhere where they're alone. And it's very possible, I believe, that these people, not all of them, of course, I don't know what the percentage would be, but I would have to imagine that a large percentage of them meet very prosaic ends. And even though we never find them, what happened to them, but they could have been attacked by wild animals and dragged away somewhere. Some people could drown. We just never found the bodies, right? Some people could have fell off a cliff and their body got stuck under a rock and it was just, nobody could see it and nobody ever discovered them there. I mean, there's all different ways people could disappear, but I believe that in some cases, it's very possible that some of these disappearances are due to these alien visitors. I think that that's a possibility. Now, we don't have a lot of evidence to this. There are some people who believe that in addition to cattle mutilations, there are human mutilations. There's reports of this over the years. It's a subject that nobody really wants to talk about in this field. But I think it should be something that's talked about because it is a possibility. And especially considering the fact that our governments won't tell us what they know about these visitors at all. I mean, nothing. They pretend that they know nothing and that there's nothing to it, and they just make a joke about it. We know that they're lying because we have the evidence now that shows that there's something here. So we have to just use our imaginations, I guess. And one of the things that could be going on here is that they're here for us specifically, for food. And you just think about it. Say the species that is coming here, the different aliens that are here, right? Some of them, maybe not all of them, but say some of them, right? Say that they're the only reason they're here is for us. They find us a delicacy, human beings. In addition to other animals here, but they might look at us as a delicacy. And just because we think we're advanced, because we have computers and cars and planes, we think we're advanced, but to them, well, they're so advanced, so much beyond anything that we could even imagine, that when they look at us, it's just the same as us looking at some ants on an anthill. That's what it could be. It could be that. It could be like that. But there have been some things that have happened throughout the years where it seems that it could have involved people getting taken away and being used as food for these beings. I mean, maybe they like our blood. I mean, for one thing, cattle, there's a lot of cattle mutilations. That's been going on a long time. We don't even know how long. We really didn't start noticing it until the late 1960s, right? But there's most certainly something going on with that. But we're human beings. Our blood is somewhat similar to cattle blood. Maybe, that's just they're settling for that maybe sometimes. But then if they catch one of us out in the wild and it's a good opportunity for them, no one else is around. Hey, they could snatch another one, and maybe that's how they're doing it for now. For now, maybe there's plans in the future to expand this activity of using human beings as dinner. That could be the case. We just don't know. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there who think that these beings are here to help us, to serve man. If you think about that Twilight Zone episode, where actually, there was an episode of the Twilight Zone from the 1960s where aliens showed up and they offered all of these great things. They basically they ended starvation on the planet, but the real purpose was they wanted to eat us. They left one of them leaves a book behind at a meeting, and they decipher the book eventually, and they find out that it's a cookbook. To serve man is a cookbook. It's not to help us whatsoever. It's to eat us. It instructs them on how to use us for food. Is that what could be going on right now? Could this be the whole game? Is that what this is all about? Maybe say let's get even bring the hybridization program in here. Maybe what the hybridization program really is, it's a breeding program. Maybe they're trying to get us to a certain delectable, edible place that we're not at yet right now, and they're trying to raise us to a different level that's more acceptable to their palates. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. I mean, because we really don't know. We don't know what's going on. Our governments won't tell us what they know. The beings are very secretive. They don't, they show up and they disappear, and nobody believes the person who saw them. So that's what's going on here with this, folks. But I want to start with I want to talk about some excerpts from this alleged Project Project Blue Book Special Report number 13 that's been talked about over the years. Like within the public domain, there's these Project Blue Book, for instance. There's a Project Blue Book Special Report number 14. That was one that Stanton Friedman got him interested into this subject. He actually read this report, and it was filled with all kinds of statistics, and it had hundreds of tables, maps, charts, and graphs. It listed 3,200 over 3,200 sightings, 3,200 UFO sightings, and 22% of them, according to this Project Blue Book Special Report number 14, were unsolved. And there were other reports before that, but they were all mundane. But there's one missing report called Project Grudge / Project Blue Book Special Report number 13. It's not within the public domain, but there was a person who said that he read it and he memorized a lot of the contents of this alleged Special Report number 13. And there were stories in there, scary stories about people getting dragged away by these creatures and one of them being mutilated, one of them never being seen again. And we're going to start there with this, and let's wonder and speculate is what happened to these people. Were they used for food? It's possible. It is possible. If this is true, then that means it's possible that these beings, at least some of them, are looking at us as dinner. Anyway, this is on the screen right now. This is this guy, Bill English. He had been exposed to this report back in the 1970s, and then later on he told the late John Lear about it, and John Lear prepared this report on what a guy named Bill English had learned when he looked through this Project Grudge / Project Blue Book Special Report number 13. For some reason, I think there's like they call this, you'll see this called Project Blue Book Special Report number 13, and then sometimes you see it called Project Grudge Special Report number 13. I'm not sure why it's like this, because Project Grudge only lasted like for a year, and it was over by the time some of these cases that they're talking about would have occurred. Actually, Project Blue Book would have been in effect. So I don't know why this is the way it is, but that's just, this is how it's always been presented, that this guy, he referred to it as Project Grudge Special Report number 13, apparently. But here's what it says about it here in this report. It says a series of Project Grudge slash Blue Book reports have been released over the years in connection with the United States Air Force's investigation into UFOs, which was supposedly terminated with the release of the Condon Report in the late 1960s. Reports 1 through 12 of Grudge slash Blue Book were generally innocuous and contained no classified or truly sensitive material. There was a final report, number 14, which was widely circulated and about which an entire book was written, Flying Saucers, an analysis of the Air Force Project Blue Book Special Report number 14 by Leon Davidson. Now, again, this was the book that got the late Stanton Friedman interested in this subject. He realized that there's a lot of cases out there that were unsolved, according to this special report number 14. However, this other guy, this Bill English, he's someone who said that he saw Project Blue Book number 13, and this is what he said was in it. It says here, several years ago, Bill English, son of an Arizona state legislator and former captain in the Green Berets, had been assigned to a Royal Air Force listening post north of London as an information analyst. English was, in the course of his duties, asked to prepare an analysis of the elusive Grudge 13 report. On his discharge from his work at the listening post, he returned to the United States and began to do a little UFO research on his own. English had been no stranger to the UFO phenomenon. In Vietnam, he was a member of a Special Forces investigative team that went in to retrieve a B-52 that was forced down by a UFO and all the occupants killed. Communications had been received from the B-52 before it went down to the effect that it was under attack by a UFO, a large light. The plane was found intact, sitting in the jungle. There was no swath indicative of a crash landing. Only the bottom of the fuselage showed any damage. There was no damage to the underside of the engine pods. Although the plane was completely intact, the entire crew had been mutilated. So right there, apparently, maybe in this case, in Vietnam, maybe he was exposed to something that involved aliens using human beings for food. Continuing, English, through contacts he still maintains, has determined that the United States government most definitely supports a project dealing specifically with UFOs and captured aliens. According to what he has learned, the United States government captured a trio of aliens, and that as of mid-1981, one of the beings was still alive in captivity. English also claims that at one point in the early 1950s until the mid-1960s, the Air Force maintained relocation and debriefing colonies for people who had experienced close encounters of the third and fourth kind. They were isolated for all intents and purposes for the rest of their lives. He doubts that these colonies are still in existence. English dictated 2 audio cassettes outlining what he remembered from the Grudge 13 report. These audio cassettes were transcribed into handwritten notes by another person. The information contained therein indicated that what had been suspected all along, that the United States government was involved in the greatest deception in the history of mankind, and that not only did flying saucers exist, but that the government had several in secret storage and had captured at least 3 live aliens. The following is a summary of what Bill English remembers from what he read during that day in June 1977 of Project Grudge / Blue Book Report number 13. So then later on, it talks about a report an incident that happened. If you read this document, I'll leave a link to this so you could check it out for yourself. But later on in this, he talks about a case that happened in 1953. It says this: one case especially noted and remembered very vividly was entitled Darlington Farm Case out of Ohio. Case apparently took place in October 1953. Man, wife, and 13-year-old son were sitting down at dinner table. As they sat there, the lights in the farmhouse began to dim. Dogs and animals raised ruckus outside. The 13-year-old boy got up from the dinner table to see what was going on. He called his mother and father to come look at the funny light in the sky. Father and mother got up, and as they got up, the son went outside into the yard. The father and mother went out onto the porch. When they got out on the porch, one of the dogs broke loose from the leash beside the house and came running around front. The boy began chasing it out into the open field. As mother and father watched, the light came down from the sky. They described it as a round ball of fire, and it began to hover over the field where the boy and dog had run to. As they stood and watched, the mother and father heard the boy start screaming for help, whereupon the father grabbed the shotgun, which was right next to the door, and began to run out into the field with the mother following. When the father got to the field, he saw his son being carried away by what looked like little men into this huge, fiery-looking object. As it took off, the father fired several rounds at the object to no avail. They found the dog. Its head was crushed, but no sign of the boy or any other footprints of the little men who apparently carried him off. The father immediately called the Darlington police, and they immediately came out to investigate. The official report read that the boy had run off and was lost in the forest, which had bordered the farm. Within 48 hours, the Air Force made the determination that the family was to be relocated, and the mother and father were picked up by the Air Force intelligence, and all personal belongings and possessions were loaded into United States Air Force trucks and moved to a northwestern relocation site. The mother was in shock and had to go through a great deal of psychotherapy and deprogramming, as did the father. One interesting aspect about this case was classification under the Air Force report, which read it was a genuine close encounter of the third kind, and that for the good of the national security, the mother and father had been relocated to relocation zones Z21-14. Not sure whether this indicated map grid coordinates or latitude or longitude. According to the report, there were at least 4 relocation sites across the United States. Depending upon which type of encounter these people had, the report indicated that there were extensive medical facilities available at these relocation sites to deal with all medical emergencies up to and including radiation poisoning. The report mentioned a site located in the Utah-Nevada area, but no indication of its purpose or what it was for. So I just want to stop there for a second before we go on to the next story that English remembered from reading this report. So they were the father and mother. They apparently people that were affected like this by encounters with UFOs and the occupants and devastating events like this. They were relocated somewhere else for some reason at the time. Apparently, this doesn't. The English doesn't believe that it was going on in the 1970s when he read this report. But that's what he said. That's what he said was in the report, that this little 13-year-old boy was taken away by these creatures and was never seen again. In 1953, Ohio. Is it true? Was English? Did he really read this report, and was this report real, or we can't really say, right? But Lear believed him. Lear believed this guy. I mean, why would you? I guess you can't. Why would you make something like this up? It wasn't like Bill English ended up making a ton of money off telling these stories, right? Telling a story of Special Report Number 13. But then this next case is a very interesting one. And I know I talked about this a long time ago, but here we go again. It says here, report gave clear indication of reports of human mutilations. Most notably was a case witnessed by Air Force personnel in which an Air Force sergeant by the name of Jonathan Lovett was observed being taken captive aboard what appeared to be a UFO at the White Sands Missile Test Range in New Mexico. The abduction took place in March of 1956 at about 0300 hours local and was witnessed by Major William Cunningham of the United States Air Force Missile Test Command near Holloman Air Force Base. Major Cunningham and Sergeant Lovett were out in a field downrange from the launch sites looking for debris from a missile test when Sergeant Lovett went over the ridge of a small sand dune and was out of sight for a time. Major Cunningham heard Sergeant Lovett scream in what was described as terror or agony. The major, thinking the sergeant had been bitten by a snake or something, ran over the crest of the dune and saw Sergeant Lovett being dragged into what appeared to him and was described as being a silvery disc-like object which hovered in the air approximately 15 to 20 feet. Major Cunningham described what appeared to be a long snake-like object which was wrapped around the sergeant's legs and was dragging him to the craft. Major Cunningham admittedly froze as the sergeant was dragged inside the disc and observed the disc going up into the sky very quickly. Major Cunningham got on the Jeep radio and reported the incident to Missile Control, whereupon Missile Control confirmed a radar sighting. Search parties went out the field looking for Sergeant Lovett. Major Cunningham's report was taken and he was admitted to the White Sands Base Dispensary for observation. I just want to say something. It doesn't say it here, but actually, according to English, Cunningham was initially charged with murder, but later those charges were dropped because when they found the body, of course, it wasn't Cunningham who mutilated Lovett. The search for Sergeant Lovett was continued for 3 days, at the end of which his nude body was found approximately 10 miles downrange. The body had been mutilated. The tongue had been removed from the lower portion of the jaw. An incision had been made just under the tip of the chin and extended all the way back to the esophagus and larynx. He had been emasculated and his eyes had been removed. Also, his anus had been removed, and there were comments in the report on the apparent surgical skill of the removal of these items, including the genitalia. The report commented that the anus and genitalia had been removed as though a plug, which in the case of the anus extended all the way up to the colon. There was no sign of blood within the system. The initial autopsy report confirmed that the system had been completely drained of blood and that there was no vascular collapse due to death by bleeding. A sub comment was added that this was unusual because anybody who dies or has complete loss of blood, there is vascular collapse. Also noted was that when the body was found, there were a number of dead predatory type birds within the area who apparently had died after trying to partake of the sergeant's body. There were a number of extremely grisly black and white photos. From all indications, the body had been exposed to the elements for at least a day or two. The New Mexico sun in the desert is extremely hot and debilitating under normal circumstances. So that was the sad story of Jonathan Lovett, if it is in fact true, right? And I would have to think that probably some of these stories are true that we're reading about. I don't think all of these things. See, I think this could be one of the reasons why the government doesn't want to talk about this, because of the implications. If people knew that there were beings from other worlds here that are interested in eating us and drinking our blood, then of course they don't want to talk about that publicly. In addition to the reverse engineering elements to this, the Cold War they got going on with China and Russia over trying to successfully reverse engineers these craft before the other guy does. But of course, you don't want to have to talk about things like this. I mean, this is too horrifying. But there's a lot of people who believe this. I don't know. I hope it's not true, but there are a lot of people who think this, including the retired electronics engineer who I talk to every now and then, or who provides reports to me. He actually had his own experience with the creature back in 1997, and he believes that creature was going to eat him. That's what his feeling was at the time. But this guy, he's a retired electronics engineer who he did work for NASA, for DARPA, for the CIA, as well as private defense contractors. So he worked within government for a long time. He's now retired, and he thinks that these beings are here for us. Actually, when I talk to this guy, that's what he thinks. And this is a story, and I know I probably talked about this before, but I'm going to talk about it again. This was his experience from 1997. He calls it my unhappy close encounter. He says here, in March of 1997, I was living in a rural area about 20 miles southwest of Tucson, Arizona. It had been a quiet day, and at 1 a.m. I was sound asleep when I was suddenly awakened by a loud scraping sound on my bedroom window. Moreover, I had this bizarre feeling that whatever was trying to get in was driven by some sort of intense primordial hunger. As disturbing as the feeling was, I dismissed it for the moment, grabbed a shotgun, and ran to the window. I switched on the outdoor floodlights, then saw a large humanoid creature unlike anything I knew to exist on this planet. It stood about 7 feet tall with a large head, a relatively short torso, and extremely long legs and arms with 3 long fingers on each hand. It was heading away from the house, so I only saw it from the back, but the way it moved was amazing. The legs took long strides, loping along, while the arms just hung limply at its sides without swinging. Consequently, the upper body and head remained perfectly upright, seeming to just glide smoothly along. When it reached the fence, which was about 4 feet high, it passed over it without breaking stride, like a hurdle jumper in the Olympics. I immediately realized that no human being could have made a jump like that, and I wondered if the thing could possibly be extraterrestrial. But what happened next removed all doubt. It ran down the hill and into a clearing about 200 yards away, and about 30 seconds later, a craft of some sort rose up and floated slowly and silently to the south. I couldn't make out the exact shape, but the bottom was radiating a yellow-orange light. I knew right away that such technology was far beyond anything we had. A few seconds later, A-10s appeared from the west, extremely low, and vectored sharply north directly over my position. I've never seen A-10s flying that low in the middle of the night. In any case, I suspect that the creature had some way of knowing they were approaching, and that was why it decided to leave the area. The following day, I ran into a young man at a local cafe whom I had previously met. He was camping in a small trailer about a mile south of my house. I said, "Thomas, something really weird happened last night." And he replied, "You're not kidding. A UFO came up the canyon." I asked him what time that was, and he said 1:15. It left my house at 1:12, so that was exactly the right time. In addition, I also found some deep scratches in the glass of my bedroom window and some long, narrow footprints that appeared to have 3 toes. This had a profound effect on me, including repeated nightmares, boarding up my windows, and eventually abandoning the house entirely. I hate to think about what might have happened if those A-10s hadn't showed up when they did, or if the creature had decided to come back. In fact, I still remain deeply troubled by the whole thing. So that was this person's experience with this and his encounter, and he feels like when this thing showed up at his house, it wanted to eat him. That's what he thought. That was the feeling he had. Maybe that's was well, maybe that's what was going to happen. Maybe it wasn't for those A10 showing up. Maybe that thing would have busted in the house, and this guy here would have became lunch. Maybe he would have had his tongue removed. Maybe that's what. Who knows what they're eating? I mean, it seems like there's certain body parts that they remove, and why, right? And this is the same thing with cattle too. But in the cases with human beings, in some of these cases with human beings, allegedly, that's the same sort of issues, the same sort of mutilation, right? The same kind of thing. Tongues removed, anuses removed, cord out, right? Jaws removed, blood drained. Are they drinking our blood? Is that what's going on? Could be. Now, here's one site. I'm not going to leave the link in the description. If you want to look at this stuff, you're going to have to do a Google search. Just look up bad aliens or just type in badaliens.info. Okay, because there's some stuff on this website, some images that that it's not for everybody. Let me just put it that way. But here was a story from 1979 in Idaho of an alleged mutilation of a human being. It says here. Don Ecker heard of a possible mutilation case from MUFON State Director Don Mason. According to the report, in 1979, two hunters in the Bliss and Jerome area of Idaho stumbled across the nude body of a man. The body was in the middle of nowhere, nude except for a pair of underpants. His sexual organs had been removed, his lips sliced off, and several other classic mutilation cuts. Although he was in a very rugged country, his bare feet were not marked as if he had walked in that terrain, but yet no other tracks, animal or human, were evident anywhere. After the police were notified, an intensive search was mounted, and miles away, the man's possessions were recovered, yet no one yet knows how the body ended up where it was found, or even more importantly, what happened to him. It should be noted that this area also had over the years many unexplained UFO reports and cattle mutilations. And then there's this case here, which I'm sure you heard about before, in the Guaraparinga Reservoir in Brazil. There was a body of a male that was found there back in 1988. According to reports, the victim had been dead for 48 to 72 hours, but there was no sign of decomposition. The eyes, ears, tongue, and genitalia had been removed, as had the digestive organs. Although it was determined that the person had been dead for several days, there was no smell when it should have been present with the stench of decay. Encarnacion Garcia learned from her friend, Dr. Ruben Gose, that he was in possession of some rather odd photos which had been given to him by his cousin, police technician Rubens Sergio. These were official photos of a body that had been found near the Guaraparinga Reservoir on the 29th of September 1988 of an unnamed male who was, however, later identified. The autopsy report states, there has been a removal of extensive tissue along with many parts of the face, head, and neck of the victim. There has also been extraction of ocular tissue, eyes, auditive, internal, and external organs, ears, and entire parts of the head. The tongue and several muscles were also extracted. The axillary regions on both sides showed soft spots where organs had been removed. Incisions were made on the face, internal thorax, abdomen, legs, arms, and chest. As Garcia observed, the doctor stated that these wounds were quite uncommon. The report also observes shoulders and arms have perforations of 1 to 1.5 inches in diameter where tissue and muscles were extracted. The edges of the perforations were uniform and so was their size. The chest had shrunk due to the removal of internal organs. It was as if whatever caused the wounds sucked the muscles through these holes. The holes were determined not to be bullet holes. Okay. Now, again, I'm not going to leave the link for that site where I got this story from. But if you want to look at this stuff, it's badaliens.info. Okay. So is that what's going on here? I mean, like I said, maybe what's happening here is maybe this hybridization program plays into this too. It's really not to get to take us over from the inside and somehow take control of us like that. No. What it is, maybe what this hybridization program is, it's a way to breed us, to make us taste better over a period of time. Maybe that's what it has to do with. And maybe at some point, right, the way these aliens can control people, and some of these abductees talk about events where there's catastrophes ongoing, and they see see giant crafts and alien creatures along with abductees and hybrids herding people, other people, panicking people into these large craft. Is that what the plan is at some point in the future, where they're going to take us away and use us as food somewhere, store us like cattle, the way we treat cattle? Is that what's going to happen? It's all food for thought. I mean, excuse the pun, but that's what it is. It's just something to think about. It could be the case. This even like when there was an old interview that John Lear had, or excuse me, George Knapp had with John Lear, and when this subject came up, Lear didn't even want to talk about it. It was a subject that just a lot of people in the UFO community, they want to stay away from it. But hey, let's just look at it head on here. Maybe that's what this is all about. Maybe a lot of these people who go missing and were never found, maybe that's what happened to them. They were taken and used as food by these beings. Maybe that's what I mean, a lot of these beings, they seem like they're insects. Some insects live on blood, right? So say these insects, that's what they're living on. And they like our blood best. Our blood, cattle blood, maybe they just look at us like animals the same way we look at other beings, other creatures here, like, oh, just food. That's how they look at us, possibly. It's just something to think about. Nothing to be worried about, though. I mean, what are you going to do? It's just, if that's the case, well, it's just part of our life, part of existence. There's nothing we could really do about it. Anyway, I just want to say this. Have a nice day. Don't worry about anything. Everything's going to be okay. I just want to say this. Thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.